It's not like, it's not a full-fledged war yet, but things have been heating up, steadily over the last couple of weeks, increasing chain exchanges of fire. And again, it's not like before. Yeah, the Israelis have been hitting a lot of targets, assassinating Hezbollah commanders, and frankly, destroying a lot of homes, and also hitting military targets on the Lebanese side of the border. But the Hezbollah can strike back, and they have been hitting targets, both civilian and military, within Israel, and sometimes doing extensive damage.
So you think it's going to pop off pretty soon?
I think so. I mean, it just seems to be heading that way, and then.
Well, if it does, then Israel might the situation that Donald Trump inherits, Israel might not be much left, and it'll just further damage Biden, and then Israel, and then hopefully Trump. I don't who knows what's going to happen. I don't want to get too far ahead speculating. Yeah. Well, one thing that I was thinking that could potentially be helpful for the Palestinians is if Trump gets into office, then because the media and the left and the establishment hate Trump so much, all of a sudden they might start shining a spotlight on the atrocities that are occurring in Gaza and Palestine. Because right now we don't really the left doesn't do it. Because
that happens. I mean, libertarians point this out actually, and I think quite justly again and again. They'll see it's just like let's say under a certain president, under a Democratic presidency, they find the Republicans are on their side and are anti-war. And that's great. Then the Republican candidate gets elected, and all of a sudden there's this great flip-flop. All those Republicans who we thought were reliable allies and anti-war, well, it becomes their candidate's war, and it's therefore a good war. And then the Democrats all of a sudden remember that they're the anti-war party and so they're going on marches again.
Yeah, this is what's so frustrating about partisan politics. It's like, do you guys have no memory? You just, it's silly. I just so stupid that people just dig in like, oh, I'm always voting blue, like even when their party has completely evolved and changed into something different.
Right.
It's like, don't you have any core principles and values? Can you think for yourself? And say that you're against war, you say that you want peace, then how are you supporting this? And as soon as Trump comes in, you're like, now we want peace in the Middle East now. It's like, come on.
Right. Well, again, that's the thing.
Joe Biden started this war.
Right. There are a lot of things that, I kind of, when I was young, of course, I grew up in Berkeley. It was very leftist. And you could say I rebelled against that because there's a lot of stuff I didn't like. Rejected on principle. But then over time, I began to say, well, actually, they were right about some things, and especially, about war and about the deep state, the security, state. But it was just around that time when I was discovering, hey, the leftists are right about that. The leftists did a big flip-flop, and they all became defenders of the deep state and their wars.
Right. It's the same thing with
things there's a principled left, that I do admire. But they are, people again like Max Blumenthal and
Matt Taibbi
Matt Taibbi, right? Yeah, these guys, and so I have great respect for them. But they'll be the first to tell you that they're hated by their, well, they just call them the liberals now, and they said they call them the liberals, but it's become a pejorative for them. I mean, these people that are just betrayed all their principles.
Right. Yeah. On so many things, like you said, we're talking about, on war, but also stuff like big pharma or big business. Yeah. It's like you guys are now the party of big pharma, big business. And,
well, they are the part. I mean, the thing is, like, you look at it. Okay, there is some big business clearly on the side of Trump. I think that there's no question about it. But in the most recent elections, like for example, in 2016. Hillary Clinton, had twice the donations that Trump had.
Wall Street loves her.
Yeah, it was Wall Street. That's right. I mean, it was Goldman Sachs and whatever. Almost all the money from Goldman Sachs went to the. That's been true in the last couple of elections. And this is not This is not the old Democrats and Republicans. Some people are trying to pretend that that's still what it's all about.
Yeah,
there was a time when the Republicans could, relied on, corporate America. They were the party of business, And again, the Democrats were the party of labor. That has changed. It's just no longer true. Again, you did, one sign of that is you had the Teamster representative
I saw that.
giving a speech which was kind of it sounded, rather leftist flavored speech too. It wasn't like he was just praising Trump, but he was talking about the elites. It's a different world.
It's a different world, but you can't tell the Democrats that. You can't tell people with Trump derangement syndrome that, because they don't want to hear it. They don't want to believe it. But it's just like, I wish they would do some soul searching. Just look at your principles. Think about what you feel. What does it mean to be a liberal? What does it mean to be a Democrat to you? Do you believe in, in helping workers? Do you believe in peace? Do you believe in that there's a problem with big pharma and big corporations being married to the government? If you believe those things, then your party is part of that problem. Is that problem now? And you have to open your eyes and see it. But I think they're just so blinded by the hatred of Trump that they can't see it. We'll see what happens. Hopefully people will wake up. I'm really curious to see, who he puts in his cabinet and if we can have some real change. And I'll try not to get too excited. But like I said, Hulk Hogan. Yeah,
it reminds me. My granddaddy would always say that he was a self-described pessimist, and he said, well, the great thing about pessimism and being a pessimist is that you can only be pleasantly surprised. Right. It's like, okay, so
manage expectations. I understand.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I think actually I'm not just being purposely pessimistic, just based on past experience. I'm being pessimistic because I've been disappointed so many times, and especially by Trump. But I would love to be pleasantly surprised.
Right. Yeah, no, my friend always had a good quote that said, happiness equals expectations minus reality.
Okay.
So don't keep your expectations too high, because reality will if it be reality may not be able to reach it. You won't be that happy. At the beginning of the podcast, you were talking about that Trump, his policies, his plans were pretty clear and laid out. We'll see who he fills in. Could you recap what you think his platform, his positions are? I think he said positions in the beginning. What is Trump's positions? Can you lay out the main his main platform? We'll say.
Okay, well, I say economic policy is basically kind of means protectionism to a certain extent, right? Protecting American industries, and actually, you have to say that there really isn't any talk of fiscal conservatism. And occasionally, it's like it's mentioned sort of reflexively, but it's not obviously a major concern. You're not going to expect any kind of what do you call it? Not an aesthetic, but any kind of fiscal austerity from Trump. So kind of rather free spending, protectionist in economics. And then culturally, why don't we just say that it's just identifying with the working class of this country? And I think that's, one reason why Trump is making he's got the white working class, clearly, but he's making major inroads into the Black and Latino working class because he knows how to speak to them. And he doesn't have the same sort of ideological obsessions that a lot of people on the left do. To give you an example, I think this has been abandoned, but for a while it became de rigueur to refer to Latinos as Latinx, right? Which is absolutely no Latinos. Like, what the hell are you talking about? That's not any language.
It's not Spanish, speak. Right?
Right. I'm sorry, but it's just like, if you really care about the Latinos, you got to see it. It just shows actually how distant those people are from everyday Latinos. And it's just not the sort of thing that Trump would never do. He would sometimes maybe use a term or something that would somebody might consider insulting. But I think average Latinos, whatever, consider this guy is for real. He's just talking to me. He doesn't hate me. We talk kind of in a rough sort of way, and it's just not a big deal. I mean, he just sort of has a working class air about him. Now it's funny because he's not at all. He was born with a silver spoon in his mouth, right? But he's able to communicate with these people. He just sort of has the personality. So that's just, let's say, rhetoric, but then culture. It's just like, okay, none of these transgender obsessions and whatever that I think is driving a lot of just ordinary people out of the Democratic Party. And then on foreign policy, it's just like, let's focus on America. Let's not start wars abroad. And I think that is actually a very popular position. I think across the spectrum, it's just the elite who has these obsessions with, against Russia and China. Especially with Russia. Yeah, so I think that's kind of, that's not a very detailed platform or anything, but that's sort of the general shape of things. And, very different from, past Republican administration. Before it used to be, it was about fiscal austerity, fiscal soundness, which I think is a good thing, unfortunately, but both parties have pretty much abandoned that, right? Mm-hmm. But the party of business, but really a big business, and the country club. That's what Republicans used to be about. But they no longer that party. Actually, country clubs and big business have gone to the Democrats. They really have. I mean, when you look at where donations are coming from and polling, you find people in those income categories and are largely Democrat voters.
Mm. Okay, well, let me just ask you one more question because I think I need to wrap it up and help my wife with the kids.
Okay.
Do you think Joe Biden is going to be the nominee, or do you think are they going to push him out?
Well, there are a lot of rumors that he may actually announce his withdrawal from the race in just a couple of days. And there are more and more people while it slowed down, maybe it was just because of the attempted assassination. Nobody said anything for a while. But then in the past couple of days, the tempo of defections of prominent Democrats asking Biden to withdraw has picked up again. You see a lot of. I think he's going to step down.
Mm. Okay, well, that'll be interesting. I mean, I don't want to be someone that has to go against Trump right now, not after he dodged a bullet and.
Right.
I mean, just the Hulk pump that did it. That was I think that sealed the deal. Okay, Dad. I think we'll cut it a little bit short today because I think the kids are going a little crazy. So I gotta.
Sure. Yeah, I understand.
Gotta go get to it. All right. Thanks a lot, Dad.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. By the way, I'll just mention a couple of things.